Welcome to the Disruptive Innovation Festival, the online festival that asks the question, what if we could redesign every day? Today we have a new and exciting session coming up with Andrea and Annie tuning in from Guatemala. They are founder of Perpendicular. It's a social innovation lab from Guatemala. They're focusing on urban problems and have been working on equal access to a more sustainable city. Perpendicular is trying to redesign the way public policy is built through participatory and collaborative processes. They've been working for a year and a half now on a project called Co-Mapp, and they will tell us all about it. Please don't forget, this is an interactive session, so ask all your questions and comments in the comment box underneath the live streaming, or tweet using hashtag ThinkDiff. Now over to Andrea and Annie. Could you tell us how technology can help to build resilient communities? I think you're still muted.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, now. So let us tell you about how we are using this redesign in Guatemala City and what should be redesigned in it. Guatemala City has more than 400 informal settlements in the metropolitan area. We call these informal settlements because there is no land tenure in this for people living in this context. It's also a matter of where the poorest families live, and there's no public policy attending this problem or reaching a decent housing for more than 1.5 million families. An important phenomenon happening in Guatemala is that these settlements are happening in ravines, which are like very steep and deep topographies where you can see there is a lot of problems of risks. And I will show you a picture so that you can visualize this kind of context. So can you see my share screen now? Let me see. There. You can see my share screen now. So here you can see that there is these houses that are, well, in very risky conditions. And also it's important to say that it's where a lot of environmental problems will gather, as there will be contaminated waters or a lot of trash problems in this context, but also is where security levels are few, like there's more violence. So they are at the end very harsh contexts to live in. And what happens in Guatemala is that there is very few knowledge of this context and very few attendance to the needs of people living here. So there's less opportunities for people, and there's no access to that formal life or formal city that many of us have access to. So here you can also see one of the entrances of these communities, one of the streets, which are very deep and harsh, especially to some elderly who lived here, and also to understand that it is a context where you are in constant risk of all types. So we wanted to show these pictures now, and we're going to be back again to talk a little bit more. And so what we saw, like when we started to reach this context, is that we needed to take action and to redesign how policy was being made for this context, or how we could actually address and change policy in this context. So we thought, what if we can redesign these conditions of informal settlement through empowerment? And how with empowerment we can redesign everything that it's happening there. So we think that through empowerment we can reach more than what policymakers are doing now. And that's why we promoted Co-Mapp as a solution, which I'm gonna explain now. So we started, planning this project we call Mapeo Digital in Spanish, which is the mapping, participatory mapping of this context with the communities that live in there, so that they could understand better the risk and also act towards them. The project consisted on piloting a methodology that could promote the mainstream mapping of these settlements, so that we can gather data and find much more information to address the problems that are being happening here. So these 3 pilot projects help us to evaluate and iterate the methodology till we got like the best or the ideal version of it, so we can empower communities and gather data, quality data that could be used for planning and for the same community to manage their own projects, and also to develop the policy that could be inclusive enough to give solutions to these problems. So we thought that in Guatemala we needed to easy the diagnosis and on these settlements, to gather data on them, to empower the community action, and to promote public policy to improve the municipal or government solutions to the problem. And therefore we mixed, what we did is that we have like our mix, that is where we use design, like we try to mix how things were settled, and we decided to mix the community, the technology, and the need of planners and organizations to have this project. And here we also, again, we're gonna show some pictures so that you can relate better. So the technology included 3 components. The first was an app, an open source app to gather data and guiding the facilitations of workshops. Then we had a drone aerial picture as a base to map the community. So it's where we, like the plan where we started seeing what the risks were. And also it was an up-to-date map of the community, which helped us understand the dynamics of these settlements. And on the other hand, or as a third component, is the online platform where all institutions will be able to share and see the collected data. So the idea here was is to gather this information in comapp.org, which is where institutions can upload their information and also share it, so that we all as a community of mappers could have this information and use it to plan much better solutions to this context. It is important to mention that this project has been strictly in collaboration with an organization in Mexico called Observatory of Housing, and they have been helping us develop all these technological tools, and at the beginning, well, we just find that we were doing the same thing. So what we define is that we could join our forces and work together. So we are working together with them to do this Co-Mapp.org, and actually the methodology was first designed by them, and what we did was to prove it in Guatemala and to adapt it to the context in Guatemala. This was a process that included a lot of institutional support, and we work in collaboration with institutions that were relevant to this theme so that we can define this ideal methodology. So here you can see some of the pictures of the process. And during this community process, we included leaders, women, children, elderly, and special needs, so that we can identify different perspectives of risks and map all the collective knowledge in different workshops until we give back this information to the community and walk them through to the use of this information for community action planning. And this was like our means to empower them to to collaborate as a community, but also to join forces and ask fundamentally for help with data that they could use to manage and to ask for projects. This influences directly on the empowerment of people, helping people to improve their awareness and organize to build community resilience. And this is where we think that resiliency is built through empowerment. You can see more pictures here. This is also working house by house to map their specific risks, so we can define, for example, that not the whole community is on risk just because it is an informal settlement, but we can define which houses are on a bigger risk and which houses are on a bit less risk. So it's easier to define policy and to define practical solutions to the problems, and not to try to take all together as a solution to the whole problem, but to try to mediate and to prioritize some families to be able to step by step learn to solve these problems. Here we can also see how they're using the technology and how children were very excited to see this drone. And sometimes people ask if this drone was perhaps a negative technology, but it has been actually very engaging to and kind of building trust in the community, so that we could collaborate with the communities. So here we can see also how we were mapping. We were doing very practical work with the community. We were putting post-its and putting stickers where they thought it was a dangerous place, or trying to identify the historic risks of the community, and therefore, we have now all this information of 3 communities, and we have also replicated this process in an extra community, like a replica, as we call it, that is like something that it's important for us, because the idea of the project is that it grows into more replicas, so that we can get the precise information of these settlements. We have also to mention that this methodology is based on perception, so but we also mix it with technical criteria, as we have work with institutions to set some criteria and define how is the best way to develop this mapping. So we're gonna go back. Now we're let me see. Now we're here again. So now we want to talk a little bit about the results of this project. Something that we are very happy is that we have been able to participate and collaborate with more than 15 organizations, and we have developed 4 institutional workshops to define and to design this methodology, and also enhancing the network and for reinforcing the ideas that they have and the collaboration between them. So we also work, as I mentioned, in 4 communities and had more than 220 participants in the workshops and on the mapping. And it has been a really nice experience. We both have worked on it, Onice and me, with a larger team and with more than 45 volunteers that have collaborated in this process in different scales of it. And for now, well, this is where we are. This is the results, but we are trying to continue the project with, of course, trying to promote that more organizations join to do this methodology and to diagnose the communities in which they work with this methodology, as well that we're trying to involve municipalities to also use this methodology. And maybe Oni can tell us a little bit about how this is continuing, and so I'd let her tell you about the next steps.
Okay, well, hi. We are now continuing to visualize the data that we collected, and soon we will launch like an awareness campaign to all in direction to more social and for the people that doesn't know the context where we're working. We're using open source tools to clean and visualize this data, like Open, Refine, and Tableau Public. On the other hand, also we are linking data with researchers to understand better how to improve and promote public policy to solve these problems. As Andrea said, we worked with 14 institutions, public institutions and organizations working in these teams. Now we're trying to make a higher or bigger impact in a long-term stage. And also, as we have, yes, we understand the technology as a tool to understand these communities, and as a tool also to constantly change the way we gather the information, and also because these territories change also a lot. So it's our way to keep changing also, and research ongoing.
Yes, so that's why we use technology, and why we see technology as an important tool in this context, because this context change every day, and every day a family gets it's new, or a family is left and migrates to another part of the city. So they're very dynamic, and we need these flexible, adaptive, and mainstream tools to be able to understand and to serve these needs better. I think we have some questions.
Yeah, Lisa asks, it is great to see how you can collaborate with the community. What was the feedback of people joining in? And how did you get people willing to participate? So probably I can answer the first question, and I can answer the second one. So people joining the participatory process. Well, on one hand, we had volunteers joining us in the project. They are volunteers that work in these type of areas and are interested to know more about the real context or where many people in Guatemala live. So we joined forces with Techo Guatemala, that is an NGO that builds houses in these informal settlements to reduce also the risks. And also, on the other hand, there are the community, the people from the community that also, with the collaboration with Techo, we started to go in the communities where Techo already participated. So they already had trust built there. So we didn't start from zero. We start where already an organization that we collaborated was involved and had also built trust with them. So that was because maybe it was easier for us to start to work there.
Yes, at the end, like, this was our way to get with people to participate, because it was a criteria that we could choose communities for this piloting where there was already an institution working. And Techo was a great, Techo Guatemala, which is usually building houses and has a lot of work in these communities. They were very important for the project as allies that took us with the leaders and make this happen in the field. The people feedback was very interesting in the sense that they were happy. They wanted the project to continue. They see this as a some process where they could learn. And I think it has been different in the first community than the third. At the end, the third community was a better managed by us, but also there was a better engagement of people, and they were willing to continue. I think we have another question of how do we see this method spread to other countries? That was from Jen. And I think here what we see is that with Mexico, with our Mexico collaboration with the Housing Observatory, it is how we see it, because this is a project that then can be replicated in all Latin America. The standards of criteria to design the methodology were based on Latin America. So perhaps at some point it can replicate, or it can be redesigned for other countries outside Latin America. But in this sense, now it has been created, at least the platform to allocate Latin America information, so that we can also be able to compare conditions in Guatemala with other Latin American countries. And also, in a sense, I guess there should be always an organization that can adapt this methodology to this country, but it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, another thing with the replication is that we are building now 3 different manuals or guides where we describe all the steps we took from the beginning with the organizations like institutional and third sector steps, and also with all the communitary processes, so that it will be easier to replicate. And also, it is important to mention that the technology is open source. You can download the app. Even you can, if you want, search in the link like Co-Mapp.org. You can find there. It's like still in construction, but yes, you can download some things there, the first draft of the manual, and then, but we are launching soon some new. So
we'll keep you informed. And we have another question about from Sigras.
Yeah, do you have an example of an outcome of a past project where you used Co-Mapp?
Well, the project is to pilot the methodology, but after we did these 3 communities, we had another project where we participated also in collaboration with another organization, and we did the process of mapping the risks, and this organization was going to do a mitigation project. So what they used was the information and the engagement of people so that the project would be better. And I think Oni can tell you better of what were the findings and what we got on this project.
Yeah.
About empowerment.
Yeah, I wanted to say that in this case, these 3 cases where we use Co-Mapp, we have a geologist that is researching about how Co-Mapp and our work in the communities about risks has empowered them to take action about their daily life and daily risk they have. So he found that the communities where we work more, the people is taking more action, like not maybe in a larger scale, but more in a personal in their houses. So doing mitigation, small activities, or even joining other people that have these problems that were not in our workshops, to help them also to mitigate their risks.
Yeah, and I think we'll find more about the benefits of this project later when we do more research on it.
So I want to jump in with a question on that. Since we're busy with the Disruptive Innovation Festival right now, can you tell me a bit on what you see as the most disruptive thing of the Co-Mapp project?
Okay, great. So what we think is that Co-Mapp is a solution for Guatemala in many senses, and it's disruptive to our context because usually in Guatemala we don't collaborate. We usually don't integrate people to planning, but just develop the solutions without identifying the real needs of people. And this is the first. And also there is a lot of institutions that do not collaborate and will, for instance, have, well, the solutions that are not integrated. And what Co-Mapp does is that it integrates the methodologies of many and the needs of many institutions so that we can collaborate better.
And another disruptive thing is that here in Guatemala we have barely information about territories, and more specific about these low-income communities. So we try to build information with them. Also, participation here is really low. We have a really top-down government, so they don't take much participation much into account. So this is also disruptive for our context to start to integrate a community to ask them about their territories, because they are the ones who know their territory best. So, and also to generate up-to-date information and maps also, because we have maps like satellite maps like from 2006, and these communities grow every year, and the risks change because environmental problems or these kind of things make them also like the risk varies every year. So you cannot plan, or you cannot, community cannot act with desactualizada on
not updated
information. Yeah, so I think we in this sense, Co-Mapp is disruptive because of that, because of we are engaging people also to act about their territories.
Okay, sounds good. One more question. Let me see first. We have one more question coming up from the session page. It's a question of Esquinza, and he wonders, he worked in a humanitarian response for the earthquake in Mexico, and he wonders, how do you envision if we can collaborate in rapid response actions in this type of emergencies with your methodology?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, this app was used during the disaster in Mexico to gather information about the status of the community. Unfortunately, the design that is now is too long and is like designed for pre-disaster events. So our proposal also is with other organizations that we have similar interests is to start to develop a new version that also acts during and after the disaster. So for now, it's a really useful method to map before a disaster, and our next step also, like maybe more midterm, is to also incorporate more post-disaster response and
after
for
all,
more resilience.
After all these events in Mexico, we are also very frightened on how this could happen also in Guatemala pretty soon. So it's important for us to do this quickly, like to be able to act on it and to have this new version of the app that could act on response of disasters.
All right, great. I think I want to wrap it up for today. Thanks a lot, Andrea and Ani, for tuning in from Guatemala. It was really nice to hear about collaboration and how it all works in Guatemala and your new app, the Co-Mapp. Thank you for joining in, and thank you for everybody watching. I want to notify you on some more sessions that we have coming up. For example, tomorrow we have a session from Jinglan, who's going to talk about value co-creation in the sharing economy in China. And also tomorrow we're kicking off our circular design case with Simon, Alex, and Joe, who's going to tell you all about circular design and how you can be involved this year. So that is this for now. Thanks a lot and goodbye.